Welcome to the chapter Sorting Materials into Groups.
This slide presents the overview of the chapter. Learning objectives. By the end of this chapter, you will be able to
Explain about the materials which are used for making different objects. List out the properties of materials. Identify the transparent, opaque, and translucent materials. Discuss the state of materials. Identify the objects which will float and sink in water. Find out soluble and insoluble substances. Illustrate the miscible and immiscible liquids.
Introduction. Before entering into the chapter, follow the instructions shown on the screen. Click each tab to know more.
Generally, we observe that some of the objects have been broken as they fall from a certain height, whereas some of the objects have not broken. Do you know? How can we decide why some objects broke and some did not? Can we guess which objects might have broken and which might not have broken? Let's find out the answers to such questions in this chapter. Let us know about the materials and things. In our daily life, we have seen many objects like a chair, a bullock cart, a bicycle, cooking utensils, books, clothes, toys, and many other objects. All these objects are made of different materials. For example, a book is made of wood, whereas a pen is made of plastic and metal. We thus conclude that all the objects around us are made of one or more types of materials. In the same way, we also find that a single material can also be used to make different objects. Each object is used for a special purpose. So, we need to know the properties of materials as well as the properties of the objects to decide which material should be used for making an object. Let us know about the properties of materials. We choose a material to make an object depending on its properties and the purpose for which the object is to be used. Different materials have different properties such as transparency, state of the material, solubility, etc. Now, let us discuss the transparency of materials. Generally, we are able to see the things clearly through the clear glass window pane of our homes, in spite of the fact that there is a glass between us and the outside world. Those substances or materials through which things can be seen are called transparent materials. Similarly, we cannot tell what is kept in a closed wooden box, a cardboard, or a metal container by looking through them. Those substances or materials through which things cannot be seen are called opaque materials. Owing to this reason, shopkeepers usually prefer to keep biscuits, sweets, and other eatables in transparent containers of glass so that buyers can easily see these items. Note: if green light passes through a transparent object, the emerging light is green. Similarly, if red light passes through a transparent object, the emerging light is red. Here, we will do a lab activity to know about translucent materials. Click each tab to know more. The aim of this activity is to know about translucent materials. The materials used in this lab activity are white paper, oil, lighted bulb. Take a white paper. Look through it towards a lighted bulb. Now take a few drops of oil and spread it on the sheet of paper. Once again, look towards the lighted bulb through that portion of the paper on which the oil has been spread. Observe the difference in both cases. We have noticed that in the first case, we can't see the bulb through the white paper, but in the second case, we are able to see the bulb through the oiled paper. The materials through which objects can be seen but not clearly are known as translucent materials. In the same way, butter paper, muddy water, and frosted glass used in a window, smoke and fog are other examples of translucent materials. Here, let us know the state of the materials. In the previous chapter, we have studied the relationship between ice, water, and water vapor, which are the three states of water. We know that as we heat ice, that is solid state, it converts into water, that is liquid state, and if we boil water, it turns into water vapor, that is gaseous state. Similarly, when water vapor is cooled, we can get back water, and if water is cooled further, we will get ice. In the same way, some materials change their state from solid to liquid, liquid to gas on being heated, and from gas to liquid, liquid to solid on being cooled. That is why we sort materials as solids, liquids, or gases based on their state at normal temperature. Let us do an activity to know about the state of the materials by lighting a candle. Click each tab to know more. Take a candle and place it on the table. Note, the word candle is derived from the Latin word candere, meaning to shine. Light the candle with the help of burning matchstick and wait for some time. Now hold a burning matchstick in one hand. Blow the candle out and quickly bring the burning matchstick close to a column of white smoke rising from the wick, but do not touch the wick with it. Observe the changes. We have observed that the candle wick catches fire despite being at a distance from the burning matchstick. From this activity, we learned that a column of white smoke rising from the wick represents candle wax in the state of gas. Hence, we can conclude that the materials also change their state from one form to another form. Here, let us learn how to identify the states of materials. Generally, we observe that certain materials can change their shape according to the shape of the containers they are put into, while some retain their shape. The materials which do not change their shape are called solids, such as wood, stone, plastic objects, brick, vegetables, and so on. whereas the materials which change their shape are called liquids such as water, milk, kerosene, oil, and so on. Similarly, we have observed that sugar takes the shape of the container as we pour it in a glass, in a bowl, or in a cup. As we know, liquids take the shape of the container. So, we conclude that sugar is a liquid, but this is wrong. Because a single crystal of sugar shows that it is a solid, whereas single drop of water shows that it is liquid. Hence, we can conclude that sugar is solid. Let us perform an activity to find the objects which sink or float in water. Click each tab to know more. Take a transparent water tub with water. Now drop the objects such as a stone, a piece of wax, a metal key, plastic ball, leaf, small piece of wood, iron nail, and a rupee coin one by one. Observe the changes. Repeat the same activity with salt water, which is excessively salty. We will observe that a stone, key, iron nail, and rupee coin sink in the water, whereas wax, plastic ball, small piece of wood, and a leaf float on the surface of water. From this activity, we can conclude that some materials in one shape will sink in water but float on water when they are in another shape. The materials that can sink can be made to float, but all the materials that float cannot be made to sink. Salt is denser than water, and so if you add salt to water, the resulting solution is denser than pure water. So, in some cases, objects that sink in fresh water cannot float in salt water. Let us perform an activity to know the appearance of materials. Click each tab to know more.
Collect the small pieces of iron, copper, aluminium, and magnesium. Observe the appearance of each sample. Take a sandpaper. Clean the surface of each sample by rubbing with the help of a sandpaper. Once again, observe the appearance of each sample. In this activity, we have observed that the surfaces of each sample start shining after rubbing with sandpaper. From this activity, we have learned that the metals have a shining surface in their pure state. This property is called metallic luster. So finally, we can conclude that the materials which have a bright surface and reflect light are called lustrous materials, and materials that do not shine are called non-lustrous.
Here we perform an activity to test the hardness of materials. Click each tab to know more.
Collect small pieces of iron, copper, aluminium, and magnesium. Take a sharp knife. Try to cut these pieces with the help of the knife. Observe the changes. Take a dry piece of sodium metal in a watch glass. Hold a sodium metal piece with the help of a pair of tongs and try to cut it with a knife. Note, always handle sodium metal with care. Dry it by pressing between the folds of a filter paper. Observe the changes. We have observed that the sample of iron, copper, aluminium and magnesium cannot be cut with a knife. We have also observed that the piece of sodium metal can be cut into pieces with a knife. Finally, from this activity, we can conclude that most of the metals are hard and cannot be cut with a knife, but hardness of metals varies from metal to metal.
Now, let us do a simple activity to know the solubility of substances. Click each tab to know more. Take 4 beakers with half-filled water. Take small quantities of salt, sugar, sand and sawdust. Now add salt in the first beaker, sugar in the second beaker, sand in third beaker and sawdust in the fourth beaker. Stir them individually with the help of a stirrer. Observe the changes. We observe that sugar and salt disappear in water, whereas sand and sawdust do not dissolve in water. Take 4 beakers with half-filled water. Take small amounts of vinegar, coconut oil, lemon juice and kerosene oil. Now pour vinegar in the first beaker, coconut oil in the second beaker, lemon juice in third beaker and kerosene oil in the fourth beaker. Stir them individually with the help of a stirrer. Wait for some time and observe the changes. We observe that coconut oil and kerosene oil float upon the surface of water and form separate layers, whereas no separate layer is formed in the case of vinegar and lemon juice. We learned that the substances which dissolve in water are called soluble substances, whereas the substances which do not dissolve in water are called insoluble substances. In the same way, the liquids which dissolve completely in another liquid are called miscible liquids, whereas the liquids which do not dissolve in another liquid are called immiscible liquids. Follow-up work. Collect different plastic items from your surroundings. Classify them as transparent, opaque, and translucent. Collect at least 15 different materials which are found around your surroundings and then classify them into different groups on the basis of their properties. You have successfully completed the chapter is Sorting Materials into Groups.